A full slate of MLS action is back this weekend for MLS Matchday 20, which kicks off on Friday, June 14th. And we'll see New York City FC hosting the Columbus Crew. And then we have 13 more games on Saturday. So it's a full weekend of MLS action going on right as Euro 2024 looks to kick off as well. We'll have nearly every MLS team in action, minus Portland, but not all of the MLS players, with tons of those players away at international tournaments like the Euros or getting ready for Copa America coming up next week. So definitely be sure to check the link on the MLS website, they have to do a good job of tracking all the international call-ups when you're looking to make some bets. And I'll obviously touch on a few players who could be away in the bets I make this weekend as well. Coaching-wise, Gonzalo Pineda was fired from Atlanta after matchday 18's loss to Charlotte. Rob Valentina comes in for the second stint with the Five Stripes. And over on FC Dallas, another coach got fired, the third of the season. They cut ties with Nico Estevez on Sunday as well. New coach and their old assistant coach, Peter Lucian, has promised a more exciting brand of soccer this rest of the way. Now, will either of those moves make a change this weekend? Not so sure. I'm going to sit those games out and wait and see. That's tough to say. So I will have some picks, though, on 6 other games that I'm going to put into 2 different parlays. So let's jump right into it. Starting with CF Montreal and Real Salt Lake. RSL won 5-1 in their last game. They're now undefeated in 13 MLS games, and they've outscored their opponents 31-14 in that time. Definitely one of the hottest teams in MLS right now. Only Miami with 35 points has more than RSL's 33, and no one has more goals in the league right now than Chicho Arango with 16. RSL was spared from the international call-up window, not really missing any players here. So they could very well keep that streak going. Can Montreal be the team to slow RSL down? They will be missing the likes of Matthew Chouanier, Ariel Laster, and Samuel Piette, who should be away for their national teams. Now, I wouldn't bet my money on Montreal stop being the team to stop that streak. They are just 4-5-7. They're 12th in the East, and they only have 1 win in 11 games across all competitions. As good as RSL have been, they've still given up 1-1, 3-3, 0, and 2 goals in recent games. So certainly there's a chance that Montreal could get on the score sheet here. Montreal have drawn 2-2 and won 4-2 in their last 2 games, and they have scored in 8 of 9 games across their last 9 games across all competitions. And these teams don't play often, but historically there have been a lot of goals between these teams. If you go back to their first ever meeting in 2012, there wasn't. It was just 1-0. That didn't see a lot of goals. But since that time, both teams to score has gone 8-0 in every game since. Montreal games also averaged the 3rd most goals per match at 3.6. That's tied with Portland and only lower than the 3.9 of San Jose and 3.8 of Portland there. So certainly we could see some goals, maybe both teams to score, RSL to win in both teams to score. In a parlay, RSL double chance, draw no bet. In my parlay, all I want is RSL to get on the score sheet, RSL to score. Let's go Orlando City and LAFC up next. It's really hard to know what you're getting from Orlando. They were winless in 4 games earlier in the season, then 4-3-2. They were starting to look a little bit better. Now they're winless in 3 again after a 1-0 loss, a 1-1 draw, and a 2-0 loss in recent games. They scored just 2 goals in 5 games, and those are versus bad teams like San Jose and Chicago. They failed to score at home in 3 games, and they have just 1 win across their last 9 home games. In those last 9 home games, they've also only scored 6 goals. This week, they're missing as many as 8 players that are listed on the international call-ups. Now, that also includes keeper Pedro Gallese. LAFC have their absences too, most notably Christian Oliveira, but Dennis Bouanga should be back from Gabon, and he has goals in each of his last 2 games and 4 goals total in his last 4 MLS games as well. LAFC as a team have just 1 loss in 12. They've won 7 straight games now. They've kept 6 straight clean sheets. They've outscored their opponents 15-1 in those 7 wins at all. Overall, these teams haven't played since 2022, and that was a 4-2 LAFC win. Other meetings were 1-1, 2-2, and 4-1. Now, these games go back to 2018, so it's not super relevant for this year's game, but still worth noting that when these teams have played, for whatever reason, there has typically always been goals. This game looks like it should be an LAFC win. There's great value on an LAFC win at around plus 155 on the road, but it does just look too easy. It's never as easy as you think it could be. Road wins are hard to come by, especially going across the country from LA to Orlando. So some different options could be an LAFC draw no bet at minus 120, LAFC double chance in a parlay minus 200, or simply LAFC to score, which is what I will do here. LAFC to score for leg 2 of this parlay. Let's go to leg 3 now. Final leg of this first parlay for me, Colorado and Austin. Neither team is missing a ton of players to international duty here, but Austin is It could be out they had two center backs that were playing in their last game. Julio Cascante will be away with Costa Rica. Leo Vasanen has been away with Finland. Now Vasanen could be back as the friendlies are over and Finland is not in the Euros, but they still could be missing at least one defensive part right there. These teams are nearly side by side in the table. Austin being 6th, 23 points. Colorado 8th, 22 points. Both have bbeen slumping though in recent weeks. The Rapids have now dropped 4 straight games. Those scores by 2-1, 3-1. They've failed to win at least in those 4 games, 2-1, 3-1, a 3-3 draw, and a 5-3 loss. That's not only just a lot of both teams to score bets, but also both teams to score on over 2.5 bets that have been cashing like crazy in their games. Both teams to score in this season. It's gone 10-4 for the Rapids. They've scored in 13 of 14, but they've conceded in 11 of 14 as well. Austin's winless in 3 after a 5-1 and 2-0 losses and a 1-1 draw, so they could be regressing back to the mean for them after a strong run of form. After all, they have the 3rd worst expected points per game rate in the league. While they are so-so 1-2-2 in their last 5 road games in MLS this season, if you want to bet on Austin road games being wins for Austin, it's not usually a very good bet when they're away from Q2. It's something they've only done 4 times across their last 30 road MLS games, so I certainly won't be betting Austin to win here. Games between these teams have recently been tight with the past 3 scorelines, 1-0 Colorado and 1-1 and 1-1. The way these teams are playing, I think we can at least see 2 goals. It could be a both teams to score. I'm just going to ask for 2. Let's go Colorado Austin over 1.5 paired with LAFC to score, RSL to score, coming in at minus 131. Looks relatively straightforward in that parlay. You could bump that up. I can't expect RSL to lose against Montreal. So if you want to go RSL double chance instead of to score, you could bring that down to even money at plus 101 over at Caesars. Let's do one more parlay here. 3 more games, and it's all late games. So no matter what happens in our early games, we're still going to have action to look forward to in the late games. All these 3 will be at 10:30. Let's go to San Jose and FC Cincinnati. It's 2nd in the East and 3rd in Supporter Shield race. Cincinnati traveling to 14th in the West, and the Wooden Spoon leaders right now, 29th overall, San Jose. Only Miles Robinson should miss out here for Cincy, who's away with USA. San Jose they've had or will have 7 players away, but many could be back. Midfielder Carlos Gruezo will certainly be away as he's with Ecuador for the Copas. There's only ever been 2 meetings between these teams, with Cincy winning 6-0 in the most recent in 2022, and San Jose winning 1-0 in 2019. Cincy has actually been off all month of June so far. They last played May 29th, and they had a shocking 2-0 home loss against Nashville that snapped a 7-match winning streak where they had previously scored 15 goals in those games. That was also the first time they were held off the score sheet in any of their previous 13 games across all competitions. The Quakes had a brief upswing where they were a little bit better a few weeks back, where they had gone undefeated in 4 games, but since that time, they've gone back down, and they're 0-1-5. They're coming off a 5-1 loss to New York City FC as well in their last game. Now, if you include all competitions for San Jose this season, that being 18 games, they've conceded a goal nearly every single time, 17 of them. They only kept 1 clean sheet in a U.S. Open Cup game against Oakland, so they've conceded in every MLS game. They also, though, so you could say, well, they did keep a clean sheet against the U.S. Open Cup team. They also allowed 3 goals against a lower tier side in the U.S. Open Cup against Sacramento as well. So it's also them giving up multiple goals in 4 of their last 6 games as well. To me, this looks much like the LAFC Orlando game, where a road Cincinnati win does just look like a very great bet. It looks like good value. Once again, possibly too good to be true. Another team that's traveling from the East Coast over to the West Coast. So similar strategy here. You could also go Cincinnati double chance in a parlay, or minus 220, maybe a straight bet at draw no bet for Cincinnati, minus 130, or simply just ask Cincinnati to score. It's something they usually do. It's something that's happened in 17 of 18 San Jose games, that being San Jose conceding a goal. So let's go Cincinnati to score to kick this off, and we'll move along to the LA Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City. Neither team looks to be dealing with a call-up crisis here. The Galaxy only have Jalen Neal listed away with USA. SKC have actually 0 players at all listed on their international call-up list over on that MLS.com link there showing the international call-up. So this looks a relatively easy game to handicap to me. The Galaxy are good. They're 4th in the West. They're 7-7-3. They surprisingly lost, though, 2-1 in Chicago in their last game. That's their only defeat in their last 7 games. They've scored multiple goals in 4 of 6 recent games and also in 5 of 6 recent home games. In those home games, they've scored 3, 2, 2, 4, 1, and 3 goals. SKC are bad. They're 12th in the West. They're 3-5-9. They may have won last weekend 2-1 at home against Seattle, but that snapped a run of 10 winless games in MLS. Their star trio of Johnny Russell, Alan Polito, Daniel Salloway, they only have 7 goals between them, and that's just not enough. And it's really showing in the results here as SKC just keeps losing and leaking goals like crazy. Continue to trend for them that has seen them score and concede. If you're betting both teams to score in SKC games, you've certainly been making out like a bandit here. They've scored in 15 of 17. They've conceded, though, in 16 of 17 and in 14 straight games. So during that winless run of 10 matches, they allowed multiple goals in 9 of those 10 as well. LAFC's already won against this team once this season, 3-2. In KC earlier this year. Last year's scores between them were 2-2 and 0-0. In the year prior, 2-2 and 4-2 SKC. So there is a history of goals between these teams as well. This should be a Galaxy win for me. And likely they score at least 2 goals. SKC's last 5 road in MLS games, they've lost 3-1, 2-1, 3-2, 1-0, and 2-1. The both teams scoring over 2.5 bet could certainly be in play here. LA have allowed a goal or more in 5 of their last 6. And in each of their past 3, they've conceded in versus Chicago, Dallas, and Houston. None of those teams are certainly very good offensively. As bad as SKC has been, they do usually get on the score sheet. So a few options, both teams to score over 2.5, the Galaxy to win, and over 2.5, Galaxy to win, both teams to score and over 2.5, LA to win and simply score 2 goals, or just in this parlay, LA Galaxy to score just 2 goals. Let's go LA over 1.5 team goals. And one more game in this parlay, Seattle and Minnesota. Maybe no team has been more affected from the international call-ups than Minnesota. Each of Robin Lowe, Tani Alawache, Danny Sinclair, Kevin Arriaga, Alejandro Bran, Carlos Harvey, Timo Pukki, Joseph Rosales, Zarek Valentin have all been on the call-up list. Now, Pukki and Lod for Finland not being in the Euros, they could very well both likely be back here, hopefully for this bet, as I'm going to be hoping on some goals here. Now, without much of their starting roster last week, they still drew Dallas 1-1. That makes the Loons 5-3-1 in their past 9 games. They've scored in 14 of 16 games this season, and in every single one of their games, there's been at least 2 goals. We can see the over 1.5 cashing at a 16-0 rate. For Seattle, just when they looked to be improving, they had just 1 loss in 9 games in all competitions. They went to Kansas City, one of the worst teams in the league, and they lost 2-1 to a team that had been winless in 10 games last week. The Sounders have still scored 9 of 11, also in 5 straight, but both teams to score bets have also gone 5-0 as well. Season long, 13 of the 17 MLS games for the Sounders have also seen 2 or more goals. And this weekend, Seattle will be celebrating their 50th anniversary, so it could be a little bit of extra energy in the house as well for them. Last year, the scores between these teams were tight, just 1-1 and then 1-0 Seattle in Seattle. But I'm going to bet on there being at least 2 goals in this game. Between the 2 teams, we have a 16-0 over 1.5 and a 13-4 over 1.5. So usually there's 2 goals for both of these teams' games. I think we could see both teams to score, but I will just ask for over 1.5 goals to complete this parlay. So it'd be Seattle, Minnesota over 1.5, the Galaxy to score at least 2, Cincinnati to score coming in at plus 128 odds. Now, I'm just going to leave it at these 2 different parlays, 3 games each. I had started digging into some other games, though, that I wanted to include, but just so many absentees and question marks, I did leave them off the final bets here. But let's just touch on 3 more games, since I did put some stats together here, with Toronto and Chicago being one of them. Now, Toronto's obviously the better team. Surprising to say, they were pretty bad last season, but Chicago's been bad most of this season. On one hand, we've got Owosu, should be back from injury for Toronto. Insigne was out going back to Italy for the birth of his child. He should be back as well. Both were in training this week. But then we have Bernardeschi suspended. Surprise, surprise. He's always suspended. Nick Gomez suspended. Osario away, international duty. Laria away, international duty. Sean Johnson away, international duty. So we get a couple players back here for Toronto. We get a couple players gone. They've lost both games already this season with Bernardeschi missing. Chicago's only missing Shaqiri to Switzerland. And they are 3 games undefeated versus Toronto in their last 3 meetings. They're 2-1-0. Shaqiri being out, not necessarily a negative. Brian Gutierrez has actually been playing better, taking that spot. Toronto has no wins in 3. They only have 1 MLS win, though, in 6 games. And Chicago only have 1 win in 10 games. They did win 2-1 against the Galaxy, and they drew 1-1 with Orlando and DC in the games prior to that. So they are getting a little bit better. But 2 of those 3 results were at home. Chicago's on the road here. And if we look at Chicago, road games in MLS, it's not a good stat for them. They have 1 win in their last 14, being 1-5-8. So throw that all together, and to me, that was just too hard to pick a winner here. Possibly Toronto as the home team, maybe a draw, maybe both teams to score. We'll skip it, but those are just some facts about that game. Another one, which I really, if everybody was in the lineup, would probably look to a both teams to score, and that's Philly and Inter Miami. But we've got no Messi, no Suarez, no Rojas, no Reyes, no Kramashi, all the way. The Herons still do have talent, obviously. In fact, the last time Messi and Suarez and Busquets all sat out, they still went to Vancouver across the country and won 2-1. Philly actually has even more players listed on the international call-up list. There's 8 listed on that list. It's highlighted by Daniel Gazdag, their top player, their top scorer, also midfielder Joseph Martinez. Then Andre Blake, their keeper, is also injured. Jack Elliott is suspended. Julian Carranza and Mikel Ure are still in the union. Caveat that for now. Reports are Carranza could be on his way to Feyenoord, and if that's almost likely to be signed, sealed, and delivered, then he's probably going to sit out here and not risk injury. So there's more question marks even with the players who aren't on the call-up list. Now, Miami would still have Campagna, Robert Taylor, certainly some scoring threats there. Campagna hasn't gotten the chance to play much this season, but when he does usually score. He scored 4 times this season. He's 3rd on Miami's scoring list. Philly hasn't won, though, in 3 games. They've had 3 straight draws. Miami hasn't won in 2 games, a 3-3 draw and a 3-1 loss. Each team has won 4-1 in the last 2 meetings, Philly at home in MLS, Miami away in Philly in the League's Cup last season. In Miami games this season, both teams to score has gone 17-5. And in all Philly games, both teams to score has gone 14-6, but it is just 1-3 in their most recent games in their last 4. So, like I said, I would love to go both teams to score, but both teams to score over 2.5. If everybody was in the lineup, this would look like a really good game. But with so many players missing, I do still think I'd probably lean towards a both teams to score, but I'm going to leave that off the list as well. One more, New York Red Bulls, Nashville SC. These teams had something in common, and it's not a good thing in common. Both played in losses to the league's worst team, New England, in their most recent games. For New York, that was last week, where they lost 1-0 on the road. For Nashville, it was 2 weeks ago on June 1st, losing 2-1 at home. Now for the Red Bulls, Emil Forsberg should be back from international duty. So too should John Tolkien and Noah Ely. Nashville will see Shaq Moore, though, still be out for Canada and the Copas. On defense, Walker Zimmerman for the U.S. should be back from the Olympic team. Not sure, but should be. The Red Bulls have suffered 4 losses this season. All those games on the road. They'll return home here, where they've not lost yet. They're 5-2-0. Scored 15. They've allowed just 5. And they're playing in a place where they've scored a goal in 9 of their 10 recent home MLS games. Nashville has been the better team. Have they been a bit better of late after a slow start? They're 3-3-2 in their past 8 games. While the Yotes aren't a good road team, their last away game was a shocking 2-0 road upset of Cincinnati. Now, historically between these teams, it's generally always tight games. They've already played once this season, and they drew 0-0 back in February. And other scores across recent seasons have been 1-0, 0-0, 1-1, and 2-0. And there was even a friendly in there that was also 1-0. So it doesn't really matter when or where they're playing. These games are always tight. I would like to say Red Bulls to win at home with some of their players likely coming back. Maybe Red Bulls just to score in a parlay. But a lot of question marks, moving parts here. I think maybe the safest bet could be the under 2.5. These teams always play tight games, so possibly the under. But we'll leave it off the final cutting board there for the best bets of the week. So let's just do those 2 parlays that we talked about. You can see them in a graphic at the end of this video. Before you make your MLS bets this weekend, if you're looking to take advantage of some great sports betting bonuses this summer, then look no further. Shred the Spread. This YouTube channel has partnered with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert to bring you the top sportsbook bonuses, where you can receive all of the best online promos and sports betting codes in the industry. If you use the link, my link, signupexpert.com/shredthespread. I'll drop that into the description and the comments of the video. You can see all of the best sports books in your location. From there, you can claim the best bonus bets, sports betting promo codes, risk-free bets, and bonus offers from a wide range of all the legal sports books in your area. If you're shopping for a new sports book and new customer promotions, be sure to help out the channel. Use my link, signupexpert.com/shredthespread. Now let me know what you're betting this week for MLS Matchday 20 down there in the comments, and hopefully we can all get some winners this weekend.